Splatoon Raiders has been out for roughly a week now, and the number of discoveries and developments increase day by day. There's a lot of content to digest just by playing the game, and the players experimenting to find the most effective strategies to clear the game's most difficult content. Weapons, gadgets, and the tank type are at the forefront of the discussion. However, one aspect of the gameplay is, I think, criminally overlooked, and talking about who's the best has always been part of an endless controversy that has been going on since the start of Splatoon 3. That's right, I'm talking about Deep Cut. Composed of band members who are also treasure hunters, Shiver, Frye, and Big Man are idols who do the newscast in Splatoon 3 and are at the forefront of Splatoon Raiders and more involved than ever with the player's experience. Anytime you venture out into a level, one of the members of Deep Cut accompanies you in the exploration bot to help aid you in combat. Outside of the tutorial levels and specific boss fights, you get to choose which member you bring along, and this affects the gameplay primarily through their unique Showstopper attacks. If you're familiar with specials from Splatoon, the Showstoppers are their equivalent in Splatoon Raiders. You fill up the gauge by defeating Salmonids, and once it's full, you unleash the Showstopper, which deals a lot of damage and can provide additional perks depending who is your bot buddy. While all the members of Deepen are more than serviceable enough to complete the main adventure, it's when we start diving into the post-game and the more difficult content that these differences start to matter. You have the ability to deepen the bond you have with each member of Deep Cut, and when you max it out, not only do you get the special cutscene with them, but you unlock a more powerful version of their special, with each member providing a special, unique effect. In today's video, I want to show you how to quickly deepen these bonds and access the upgrade Showstoppers for Deep Cut, as well as evaluate each of them on what they bring to the table. Aside from showing off the upgrades, this video will have no spoilers, and there will be timestamps to jump around this video. With that out of the way, my name is Neptune, and let's get started on who is the best member of Deep Cut in Splatoon Raiders. Let's start with the guide portion of this video, and I'll show you how you can quickly deepen the bonds with each member of Deep Cut. It's actually a lot simpler than I expected, as it's tied to the total number of times you use their Showstopper ability. You do not even need to clear the levels for this total counter to go up. Knowing this, two habits you can develop are the following to slightly speed up the bonding process. If you're at the end of a level and about to collect the treasure to end it, be sure to activate the Showstopper special if you haven't already. It's easy to forget, especially given how much fun you can be having with your other equipment and gadgets. The second is, if you're close to failing a raid and know you aren't going to succeed, click the Showstopper special regardless, as it adds to the total. This is unironically how I first deepened my bond with Frye, which is really silly to think about, and how I learned more about the bonding system mechanics in this game. Yo, you know that level we just failed? It was a banger experience, we should do that again sometime. With that in mind, you might be asking, how many times do I need to use the Showstopper before I max out my bond with the Deep Cut member? Luckily, while bonding with Big Man, I kept a side count as I grinded out the bond. I believe I might have miscounted it somewhere in the count, but these are the rough estimates that I found. The first bond deepening scene occurs after you use their special 15 times, the second one occurs after using their special 30 times, and the final cutscene that upgrades the Showstopper is using their special after a total of 45 times. Alright, now that we know what is required for the upgrade, now it's just a matter of finding a quick method to quickly grind it out. In my last video about farming EXP to level up fast, I mentioned how den levels were pretty solid and easy given how they hardly last a minute and a half if you're at the recommended level. Well, luckily for us, there's some overlap, as when you go through most dens, you get enough power eggs to charge up the Showstopper, use it, and clear the level pretty quickly. If you want my recommendation, I suggest the Starkboro Den due to the big shots not being too strong and allowing flexibility with your preferred tank. Rinse and repeat playing through the den, you'll quickly accumulate both EXP and the Showstopper uses to get them fully upgraded. Alright, now is the part of the video where I start to break down each of the upgrade Showstoppers, talk about their use cases, and rate them on their overall usefulness. Going to this next section of the video, I like to give a disclaimer as it's going to be somewhat controversial, as it is an opinion piece, but it's backed up by talking with other players' experience and in-game testing. At the end of the day, each of the Showstoppers are more than good enough to get you through the main story as well as some post-game content, but we're talking about optimizations and clearing super hard endgame content. This is where things start to get a bit murky. This is also the part of the video that will start showcasing the upgrade Showstopper, so if you do not want to be spoiled and find out for yourself, use the method above, click off, come back later using the timestamps. Okay, are we good? Let's get this started, shall we? I'm going to start with Shiver's Showstopper special, Big Bite Royale. Shiver summons Master Mega and launches across the entire map, going through all forms of objects and terrain. The upgrade increases the damage, area effect, and freezes any Salmonid surviving the attack. Since she's the simplest Showstopper and effect, it's really easy to test out and make observations that apply for every single Showstopper. The first one I want you to note is when you activate the special, there's a hitbox from the deep cut member spawning in that applies damage and adds to the overall output. I'll talk more about this later, but for now, just keep this in mind, but the numbers I'm going to be showing on screen later on in the video are with my current post-game level, as you see in the bottom left. The second thing to note is relic and weapon powers are factors considered when calculating the damage for Showstopper specials. These powers like close combat and long range, or even the power tank surge, can help you dish out even more damage with them. Interestingly enough, the powers that require you to be a certain distance away from the enemy is relative to your own player character's position. Meaning what I can do with Shiver specifically is activate the Showstopper up close, swim away, and get the bonus damage from long range. While this is a niche scenario, it helped explain the game's mechanics, and I feel every Showstopper can benefit from running some damage scaling abilities like close combat. The last thing I want to mention is there's a debuff associated with each Showstopper, and they each vary on their usefulness. While there are some builds in the game that take advantage of their respective debuffs, given how the specials are required to be charged in the first place, do not rely on the Showstopper to be your primary resource for the debuff. Instead, use that debuff to supplement your strategy, and I'll be mentioning the synergy that you can have with them as we go over each of them. Okay, with those observations out of the way, let's get back to Shiver. The freeze that comes with their special is extremely welcoming. There's a synergy with the Icebreaker weapon powers, especially with the slower weapons like chargers, blasters, bows, and dynamo rollers. However, when a Salmonid is frozen, that buys you enough time to do whatever you like, as there aren't a threat for a few seconds. You can still attack them normally or reposition as needed, so freezing is always beneficial regardless of whatever strategy you are running. The flexibility of this debuff is great, and the one thing that is unique to Shiver is her low cooldown. While the Showstopper special is happening, the meter depletes, and if you collect any power eggs during this time period, they will not contribute towards charging up the next special. Shiver is really unique since her cooldown's roughly 5.4 seconds and relatively quick. Meaning, with just a little bit of routing, you can just walk into Mega Power Eggs dropped from the boss Salmonids who were just defeated by the Showstopper alone. This inherently gives her the best energy with the Relic Power's Showstopper power, which fills your special meter more quickly and gives your gadgets better cooldown. I'm not too big on the Relic ability, but it's something to keep in mind if it suits your playstyle. With that being said, let's start looking at the numbers. Having no powers equipped and including their spawn-in damage, Shiver outputs a respectable 400,000 total damage. I want to give a lot of praise to Shiver's Showstopper. Given her map-wide range, good uptime due to low cooldown, consistent damage, and inflicting the freeze debuff, she's very reliable and flexible with any build or strategy you are using. Since simplicity works in her favor, and she is in contention for one of the best Showstoppers in the game. Moving on to Frye's Showstopper, Mores in the Air. This is where I unfortunately start to be less positive. Frye summons eels from the sky whose attack cover a wide circular area from where the special was activated. The upgrade increases the damage, area effect, and ferments any Salmonids surviving the attack. On paper, this sounds great. A fire and forget special that helps you with crowd control damage over time and allows you to do more damage with the ferment debuff is something that seems like it'd be fantastic in this game. However, something that immediately jumped out to me when I was doing my testing with Frye is she is not guaranteed to apply the ferment with her Showstopper. While it's very likely given the area coverage and the number of eels, there's just a chance it just won't go through. Ferment is a great status effect as you deal 20% more damage and have synergy with the explosive ferment weapon powers, which is absolutely amazing in this game. If Frye misses applying her debuff, she not only hinders your damage, but she hinders her own damage output as well. The cooldown is in the middle with 8.3 seconds, and the fact that you're moving to take advantage of the ferment status, it feels like it takes a little more effort to recharge Frye over Shiver. This is where I go into the eels she summons. From my testing, the number of times an eel can attack this training dummy varies quite a bit. Sometimes I can get pretty lucky and get 11 eels to connect, and other times I can only get 5. I'm being a bit unfair with this test environment, as the boss enemies that get caught in the circle of eels are typically larger and will be hit by more of them. So the damage Frye can total can either be really good or really bad depending on the number of eels that connect, as well as if the ferment debuff gets applied in the first place. It's hard to put a number to Frye, but I'm going to try my best. For my calculations, I'm going to be generous and assume the first eel connects and applies ferment and the 8 additional eels land. We'll add in the spawn damage, and when Frye recalls, it's just another instance of that spawn damage with a bit more damage due to the ferment. You can see how the numbers add up on screen, and overall, my Frye totals 430,000 damage. This is more than Shiver's, but again, I feel like I'm being a bit generous with my assumptions here. If you ask me, Frye is inconsistent. If you have a loadout that revolves around fermenting and want to have Frye supplemented, she can certainly do it. However, there's nothing really stopping you from applying ferment through other more reliable methods from gadget slots or specific late game relic powers. At the end of the day, Frye relies on ferment for the good damage output. Meanwhile, the other two members feel like they can thrive regardless of its presence. I think this makes Frye great for early game, but makes her fall off later in the post-game content. Does this make Frye bad? No. She still does what a Showstopper special expects, but the inconsistent is what makes me stray away from using her in the first place. She won't be ranking very highly for me personally, but do not make me stop you from enjoying using her if you do. Now we move on to the final member of Deep Cut, Big Man. His special Till Depths Do Us Dance has quite a lot of moving parts. The upgrade increases the damage, area of effect, and applies Scorch to any Salamentids surviving the attack. The most defining trait of this Showstopper special is you're riding on top of Big Man and are invincible. While you're unable to use gadgets, the invincibility is extremely welcoming and gives it utility as a panic button special. If you enter danger and are about to die, just clicking this Showstopper alone can outright save you all by itself, and gives it special merit just for that fact alone. Not being able to use gadgets is a significant downside, as gadgets become inherently really strong in the post game with their damage scaling and ability to cycle them relatively quickly. However, this is made up for the fact that Big Man's damage output scales incredibly well, especially when focused on a few targeted boss Salamentids. Just look at the footage here. Big Man stacks damage sourcing from making contact with him, the number of projectiles he fires out, the Scorch debuff stacking, and gets additional spawn damage after the special ends. While I'll show the number sources on screen, Big Man's the only one who rams the damage cap on this training dump, meaning he's dealing well over 1 million damage just from the Showstopper alone. You are invincible and actively dealing damage for roughly 12.7 seconds, which is a lot of time given how fast this game can be. But this is also the cooldown time, which is another downside I want to bring up. While you're on top of Big Man, any power eggs you collect during that time do not contribute towards the next Showstopper special. This gives some merit to using the Showstopper power relic ability, and I've seen it on some post-game builds with people who really like abusing Big Man. It's not a must-have, but just thought I'd like to mention it. The last thing to talk about is the Scorch debuff applied by Big Man. It's hard to evaluate this ability as its synergy is with the Ignite weapon power, which is very strange since this weapon power does not deal any damage, it just merely spreads the Scorch debuff, which means it's drastically weaker than the other debuff weapon counterparts. You can stack the debuff to make the damage more potent, but I think Scorch falls into the category of mid to nice to have. It's welcoming but not nearly as good of an effect or have the potential the other debuffs we discussed. I'll mention Scorch damage does increase when Ferment is also applied, but I feel Scorch in combination with other things is good, but Scorch by itself is pretty underwhelming. Overall, Big Man Showstopper is great at bursting down single targets and can get you out of sticky situations with his invincibility. The only downsides are when the special is active, you cannot use your gadgets, and the cooldown is the highest across all Showstoppers. Now, onto the rankings. Again, this is just my opinion, and please do not take what I say in these rankings personally, as I feel like all these Showstoppers are great in their own right. With that out of the way, let's get started with the rankings. Given what I said earlier, Frye's Showstopper is taking the bronze medal here. The inconsistency of her damage and reliance on Ferment to deal good damage and help your own is what puts it here. Don't get me wrong, Ferment is a great debuff, but when there are other more accessible and reliable ways to apply it in post-game through gadgets and powers, having it tied to this Showstopper in particular makes it feel very underwhelming as a whole. Now it just comes down to Shiver and Big Man Showstoppers. This is where things get debatable as it boils down to what you value. Big Man Special being a solution to an immediate problem you recognize with his damage and safety net of invincibility makes him extremely useful in many scenarios. Again, the drawback is you cannot use your gadgets and the uptime of your Showstopper is low, but I can see an argument of those factors not mattering given how much damage you do with just one use of Big Man. Applying Scorch itself is underwhelming, especially when the other aspects of Big Man Special is so good. Shiver's Showstopper, on the other hand, is a map-wide consistent damage and freeze on any Salmonids that survive in the radius. Given how short her cooldown is, you'll often be getting more special uses from her, and freeze is a really strong debuff, especially when you still have access to your gadgets. The action and time spent when a weakened Salmonid is frozen and cannot threaten you generates a lot of value overall. This is a very close competition, but I think I'm going to have to give Shiver the gold medal over Big Man. As of the time of writing this, Raiders postgame heavily emphasizes gadget optimization and usage. The stronger your gadgets are, Big Man's trade-offs starts to become more apparent and Shiver's uptime starts to become even better and more appealing. Yes, invincibility is great get out of jail free card, but as you get more skilled, how many times are you going to need that? This leaves Big Man in with just as insane damage, which is as amazing as I mentioned several times throughout this video. But now, its use cases start to feel more limiting when Shiver just supports your overall action economy. To summarize the Showstopper placements, Frye comes in a 3rd place slot, Big Man follows in 2nd, and Shiver comes in 1st place as she is the leader of Deep Cut, as fitting as this is. If you disagree with me for whatever reason, feel free to let me know in the comment section below. Try to keep it civil down there and we can have a nice discussion. Thank you so much for watching, and if you want more Raiders Guide content, feel free to subscribe to the channel or follow my Blue Sky or my Twitch on the screen right now. Also, leave a like and or comment, as those are one of the best ways YouTube determines a video should be passed around to more people. So if you feel that video deserves it, I would greatly appreciate it. Stay tuned and love you all.